speaking of the youth, that youth block in our population, and we talk about Africa rising, and a huge part of that is linked to our projected demographic dividend, right? But in the next several years, this youth block is going to be working age, right? They're going to hopefully transition out of that informal into a formal workspace, and therefore they become consumers, they become, economy drivers. Yeah. But the question is, can the culture and creative arts be a key driver to our economic development?
So it's a very interesting perspective to look at, but also you find that it is not isolated from the other things that are happening within the world, within the continent. So when you look at a continent whose population is at 1.4 billion, that is the Africa population, and it is rising.
We're going to be 2 billion in 2050 or 20.
At a very fast pace, and we still have a young population. So we don't have the aging population that Europe and the other continents have. So Africa has a largely young population. So many of these are realistically in the informal sector, because look at the natural development challenges, look at the literacy levels, look at the birth and growth rate, those are constant. So transitioning that active population into a workforce that is going to be supporting development, you need to look at what areas are they in. While the world is transitioning into IT, they're not in IT because they're not formally trained. Many of them are in what you are looking at as hand skills. Many of those hand skills are in the arts, culture and creative.
One would argue that because we are not in technology, the fourth industrial revolution is why we are, as Uganda or Africa, are behind the rest of the world.
As someone has been reminding us a lot, technology is very much garbage in, garbage out. So we've been getting that reminder a lot. But again, it's developed per the human skill.
It is,
It is still a place where it is the human skill that is powering technology. And the relevance, we are still looking at what can it do for me. Yeah. It's not all technology is there for, it has to be able to do something for me. And so it's being taken out of who we are, what we need as human beings, where we are. So even as we encourage, because we don't want to stop, like we're still going to encourage our population, our people to harness the technology. It is still very much going to be
about a human brain
and where we are.
We can't divorce it from the human.
Yes, we can't separate it. Unless you're going to wipe out those 2 billion people, there are still going to be 2 billion people. Regardless of which machine is there, they're still going to be, and they're still going to be young people. What are they going to be doing? I think for me, this is what the LMF is looking at. We cannot divorce the cultural. When you ask the cultural and creative sector, it is not separate from other sectors.
No, it's not.
It is not separate. And I think looking at it as a separate thing is why we're having issues in construction. Why people look and say, oh, people are just building, the things people are building, they're just terrible. You look at them, there's no creativity. The things that you argue about, it's because you have removed the creative and the cultural aspects. When you go into the factory and the manufacturing business, you have to have creative people in that.
You need the problem.
It is not just efficiency that you're looking for. You can be efficient and not make any money because what you're making it's either ugly or no value. It's not it's not relevant. It's not. You need someone in there thinking outside of the box.
You need
people caught Ford because of the production line. they don't realize that Ford is not producing the car he was producing in the 1920s. Was it 1920s? Yeah. He's not still producing that black thing. No.
It has to take the design has.
He had to figure out a way to make his cars more attractive. Yeah. And the wealthier people are getting, they're looking for something more than just the basic.
True.
So it's not just, you've been efficient in pulling out these buses.
All right,
I need something.
So let's talk culture and creative arts. What does that encompass? What does the sector encompass?
Oh boy.
The entire existence of humanity is revolving on the culture and creative sector.
Okay.
Like literally. So when you talk about the culture, it's really the life, everything that embodies how you live and move and exist. That is culture.
Mm-hmm.
That would go from your faith, to your food, to what you wear, to how you speak, to how you express yourself. That is culture. And
our ideas, values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And within all that, how you do that and how you do that as Munyoro, how I do that as Shiga, how you do that as Muganda, how you do that as someone from China, that is then where the creativity and the art and ability to solve problems comes together. The creative aspect is really how you tweak and do things and just come up with ingenious ideas. So the entire existence of humanity revolves on the culture and creative sector.
Okay.
So for us to say, the artists are like here, the scientists are here, it's honestly a lack of, content and context. There's no,
I was waiting for that. So because the reason I asked that is because many times we are taught or we are raised with them, the science and the arts as usually exclusive, right? Yeah. And yet life is, they can't be separate. And then when you come into, whether it's national development, the discussion of the culture and creative arts sector, which encompasses subdomains like, the literary works, book production for us that, affects us. You've got the visual arts, the performance arts, you even have architecture and design, and it's wide. But those are sort of treated as secondary. Right? And now with the push for the industrial revolution that is hinged on technology, the cultural and creative sector is treated as, as non-relevant to economic development. It alarms me. It alarms me, yes, because I'm trained as an artist, true. Yes, because I work with Ibua Publishing and we are a literary organization and all of that. Yes, but I also think of other places. There are three places that I'm always looking at: the USA and Hollywood, India and their film history.
Yes.
I recently discovered Bollywood is not a term they like to use.
So nice.
So it is Indian film industry or Hindu or Tamil. Then you've got the other places that are like South Korea and close to home, Nigeria. But you see spaces that have that industrial transformation that is driving the economy. But alongside that, they've got this soft power, right? And the USA is Hollywood, India is the film industry, same with South Korea. South Korea is music and film as well. And then Nigeria, the same thing. Yeah. It seems obvious.
It should be.
It seems obvious that that those two go together. Yeah. Right? But as practitioners, we know that we find challenges. You find whether it's undercapitalization for the sector, lack of investment, a lack of infrastructure development for the sector. Yep. Recently we attended that meeting organized by Kuyonesha, and just hearing artists that have 30 plus years in the field just decry the idea that we have one national theatre. One national theatre, 60 years of independence, and we have just one national theatre, right? And you're thinking, where is public funding for the culture sector? Where is because it can't just be hinged on the private sector, can it?
It cannot, and I mean, it's a shame that it is, but also, like I said earlier, it's the recognition of the other pillars that are around it, and the why and the who and the what that can then explain why it's art. Any person that knows that if you want to have a population that is critical, that is engaging, that is absolutely involved in development, you need the arts. You need literature, you need poetry, you need writers, you need thinkers, all the critical thinkers. When you look at ancient Greece, all the philosophies that we are looking at came from great thinkers. So anybody that would like a population to develop, you start with the arts. And that is your ability to tap into that same soft power that allows people to express themselves, that allows aesthetics, that allows critical thinking, that allows open minds to be able to have that level of expression. And unfortunately, the other pillars that we are working with cannot allow that, because we are still realistically a young nation. And while we are celebrating 60 years of independence, or do we call it some level of independence, are we really independent? Are we at that space where we then can allow Spire to express himself and not think that he's criticizing somebody? Are we at that space that we can allow peaceful demonstrations, in any level? But you can't allow that level of critical thinking and engagement if you want to allow the other pillars to also exist. So unfortunately, that's where you have a sector like ours that really, really is contributing to so many jobs for a big number of youth. It's unregulated, it's unstructured, it's unplanned for. And then you have people pushing technology. We still have regions that don't have electricity. West Nile is not on the national grid. So even after 60 years of independence, we have spaces that have no connectivity, that have no access, that have no health centers. How do you then push sciences to a population that doesn't even have the access to facilities or infrastructure that would make that thrive? We cannot be pushing that as the way for development if we cannot even address the basics. As the only way for development.
And I think, so because
it's a challenge.
The culture and creative arts sector is very instrumental in, the cohesion, in building the cohesion of a community, of a society. It's instrumental as well in the cultural transparency, the idea of who we are and how that is transferred, the expression of who we are.
When you talk about patriotism, it starts from that foundation of culture.
How it's transferred to the next generation and things like that. And so it cannot be divorced.
It cannot.
It cannot be divorced from, when we speak of national development, we must include, I think, that culture and creative arts must be included. And anyway, I could go on and on about
the core.
I could go on and on about this, because I really feel strongly about that and the potential of us.
I think one of the things that we must, and definitely we desire to, and we shall continue to look for all the opportunities we can get to be at that table. For me, I think
because we're at the table,
right?
We're at the table.
Yes. What I think, it has been difficult to be included. With LMF, we were young. I mean, in many spaces we are still considered.
It's a journey of many artists. It's a journey of many art institutions.
And we were not taken seriously. And for those who committed to the artist's journey, they don't have the money to back it up.
No.
And so what we found is that many of us withdrew from the journey, because after a while you're like,
after a while
I need to survive. I need to put bread on the table.
And then if I have to add babies, I also want a family, then those needs just explode. So many of you find that without the money to back you, people don't listen. People don't listen to you. And so I think one of the things that the things we changed with Ibua Publishing and LMF, we insisted that a board member must have a business.
It helps.
Not just they must be running like another business, have that experience running a business. We wanted
so to be a board member, you had to also have business experience.
Business experience. So what we're looking at was not just people who were interested in the arts or who loved it or had passion for it or had been in LMF, but people who had experience running businesses, building businesses.
Yes.
Because we said we need to make money.
Yes.
We need to make money. We are thankful for the help and the support that we have received and we continue to receive. But we need to reach the place where we develop a thriving business, especially for
the arts.
For the arts, where it's a thriving business. Because there, they come to us. And that's just what we see. They will actually come to us. And so that is the push. Even as we look for grants, even as we look for support, we believe that ordinary people like us, should get to the place where we're constantly drumming it in.
Yeah.
You support us by subscribing, reading, by buying the things that we are producing, because that's what creates the sustainability.
Yeah.
If they don't see how it works, we show them. We show them how it works. We show the difference between a child that reads and a child that doesn't.
True.
And we show them the child that has read African work and the way they're expressing themselves with a child that isn't. A child that has read African work, has read Ugandan work, is in touch with that, is going to be very interested in staying, not in leaving. Because you find that with many families, you raise children, you run businesses here, and your children are not here to stay.
And they're
telling you that we should be handing over businesses, but they're not here.
They're looking at the shiny object that is in Europe and
they've
the US.
Migrated. They're not interested. They come back when you die to sell off the business
and go
back.
Yeah.
So I like what when you talk about reading Ugandan and stuff like that. I think until I had the idea of writing, like I had the desire to write, but it wasn't until I joined Ibua Publishing that it was why that's important was sort of like instilled further, because we should write. We should all write, and I speak from my writing experience, but we should all create. We should create. We should document, as you were saying. We should document our experiences. I think of the stories that I grew up with in my family, our oral traditions. Those stories hold more value, or their value is in anchoring me better than all these other foreign stories that that I grew up reading. And the only way we make a difference is if we have more people creating and documenting our experiences and our stories. And that's important. That's important. I could just go on about that. But before we, we are coming to the end, I want to talk about emerging technologies, and the idea of Chat GPT. I don't know what you think about that. I think it was released in November 2022, and perhaps December or January, there was. I'm not even sure if it was a tutorial, Solomon King. I think it was just demonstrating how it works. But he created a story, a literary work, illustrated Afrofuturistic work within hours, right? And so he's using ChatGPT to feeding it with prompts, and it's writing and then Midjourney for the illustrations. And I remember feeling, I don't even know the word, not fear, not apprehend. I I don't know. I think maybe it's the way people felt in the 1980s when the internet came about, like that sudden awareness that perhaps my job, my function is under threat.
Yeah.
You know, so there was that feeling in that initial moment, as I'm watching the video.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this is just ours.
No,
and now you read about.
How anchored was it in? Did you feel like it was something that could have been created everywhere, or was it something that was Uganda?
I felt that it was generic in terms of Afrofuturistic stories, right?
Yeah.
But then I had to ask myself, was my thought a defense mechanism? Like because I feel threatened, so I'm like, oh, no, it's not good quality, you know, that kind of thing. However, but now you hear more of, say, like on Amazon, you've got a whole category for
AI generated.
Yes, AI chat. People listing ChatGPT as an author or a co-author, you know, kind of thing, and it's becoming a big thing. So, in the art space, you know, as a practitioner of arts, visual arts, and you've got people fighting for the rights of the artist. How are you competing with computer-generated, AI-generated artistic works and stuff like that? Where's the copyright infringement? You know, all those questions. So, as people, sorry, my question is quite long. As the two of you leading organizations that are involved in the creative and cultural arts, right? Building for longevity. What are you thinking with regards to these emerging technologies?
So it's twofold, because I look at it, Solomon had to be an artist, first of all, for him to understand how it works. And he needed his artistic, creative skills to feed into that, to reproduce whatever he had to do. If he didn't have that foundation, it would have been, you know, a piece of rock.
He wouldn't have been able to guide the prompts.
He wouldn't have been able to do jack with it. It would just be a piece of stone right there. So, which takes me back still to the understanding and the reality that you still need that basic foundation and understanding to be able to feed into it and create something that is of any meaningful use or value to you or even the audience. And then also, the good thing for that for me is that it makes the value of original work go up.
Original work.
That is really the reality.
Yes.
Because you have all these art fairs, go to the Biennales, go to Venice Art Biennale, go to, recently there's the Dubai Art Fair. Nobody's buying AI generated work. Everybody is looking out for original work. Original handmade work. So while the AI work is all coming up, the value of original work is going up.
Yeah,
because now you have all this
furniture is not going to be.
You have this mass-produced. It could be done by anyone, anywhere in the world. So it makes the value of this go up. And then on the other hand is that we're not going to fight technology. You know, it's coming, it's here, it's with us. But how then can we manipulate it as a tool to make certain processes easier,
to improve,
quicker, and improve?
Yes.
And then there are spaces that I get to, and that is not even, it is the least of their worry, because they don't even have electricity to begin with. So when I come out of all that and come down to our 48 million Ugandans, and the realization that the biggest percentage of that doesn't have electricity, doesn't even have internet. The internet that the 1.8 million in Kampala are enjoying is different. It's not even not there. It's just, it's a drop of what, you know. So at the level of where we're at, we still have grassroots challenges to solve. Where if I'm telling Loduk, who is in Loduk, he's one of our partners, and Loduk is from Nakapiripirit. If I'm telling Loduk about AI, Loduk, who got his first smartphone a few months ago, it's really one of the least problems that he is facing right now. He's trying to first of all, let me just get the basics. My kids don't have education. I am trying to learn this whole filmmaking thing. I've just got a smartphone. How can I promote my film on YouTube? Like, he's beginning to grapple with the basics. And on certain days, I cannot get him for 3 days on phone because he has taken his phone
to get
charged in a faraway trading center. So after he charges it, he'll use it for 1.5 days. Then he has to take it again to charge. So the challenges that artists and other Ugandans are facing are honestly at such sad stages that when we talk about AI, that is a very elitist worry right now. So when we carry it, then the elitist
I hear you
level,
oh,
let's,
I hear you. Let's put it. Let's take it back into our context, and our context is still dealing with internet connectivity. All those things. Yeah,
we still have people who will not bathe because the water has to be fetched so many kilometers away.
Yes. Yes.
So it's it's like that. It's the reality of what we're facing.
For me, I absolutely agree with her. So I would look at it as just a reminder that it is a tool.
Yep.
It will always be a tool. Like, I am the person who says don't trust technology. Like, who made it, don't trust technology. Like, I will not be that person. I was shown a kitchen, where you were tapping some electrical things and the whole thing. I was like, you guys, my transformer in Boate, power at 7 o'clock, everything just goes zzz. So it would never work. Like, even for me, there are things I look at and I'm like, that's great, looks wonderful, but it's not for me because it just doesn't work where I am. But if we look at it as a tool, and we remember that it is a tool, then we can see how can it help.
How can it help?
How can it help? Yeah,
because it should be improving. It should be improving the way we create, the way we do life. Yeah.
If I'm a great artist, and
it can only make you better.
And there is something where there's a group of people who don't buy their art. Who buy art in supermarkets. There's that group of people. That's where they want to go buy art in supermarkets already nicely framed. So
and they can only buy it at a certain price.
Yes, they're only willing to pay
20,000 shillings.
They will not spend millions of shillings on that kind of art. But they're willing. They're like, I want something nice, but they're not willing to, whether willingness or afford. So if I have a tool that can create something quick for that market and earn money from it, please, why not? Yeah, like the way in publishing, there are people who are not interested in reading Toni Morrison. They're really not interested in sitting down with literary works of fiction. They're not going to pick up poetry. They're just not. But give them a hard-boiled detective story, not too many pages, they will bite in. I'm not going to say no. I'm not. At least for me, I'm really not.
It helps to
as a business model.
Really.
It really works. And if we can create for as many people, if I have something that can help me, because sometimes it's just that you're stuck because you're stuck with the writing process. It takes 3 months just to be able to sit down and write. But if I have something that can actually tell it what I need to, then I read and say, not it, change this. Then it tells me, it's like using Grammarly. When you put in...
you have to put in something.
Yes.
But you have to put in something. It will not create on its own.
Yes.
So I was listening to someone recently speaking about women and technology and how we are slow adapters.
I don't know who that was.
You don't know who?
First of all,
I don't know what their survey was.
It also helps not to know who they were because some of the most ingenious creators of technology have been women.
Yes, creating, but in terms of, like, if you put it into the wider community, into the wider society. We are slow adapters.
Question is, which technology are they talking about? Because I'm always looking for something to help me.
To make... We have the patience, first of all, to be able to adjust and know how it works.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Like,
I'm the one to go through the manual.
Yeah, I'm the one who goes through the instruction manual. So I don't know what survey they did.
I'm like, who is that?
Who is that? They haven't met you.
No.
Okay. So
They didn't ask us.
Let's let they should ask you.
Yes.
They should ask
Yes.
you. Okay.
And there's different technologies for everybody. Yeah, you know.
All right. So I'd like to wrap this up. Next week we celebrate Women's Day, and both of you, obviously, are leading these organizations that are having impact in Uganda, yes, and the continent. Anything? I'm trying to phrase my question again. But what would you, regarding your journey to these places, how has that been as a woman?
Well, both as a woman in the space, and also as a woman supporting women, and also as a woman who has learned to recognize and appreciate and be more mindful of the challenges that women face. I try not to mark the one day on the calendar because we are so much more than that, and day-to-day challenges really make that one day quite.
I mean, for 364
and
days,
you really, you know.
Yeah.
So as a program, we were very intentional, first of all, on the inclusion and on the participation and on the funding of more women, because our study revealed that we had a less than 10% participation of women within the arts sector. Yeah. So then, how do you bring that number up? It's really in the recognition of what is holding them back. You know, so we're still in a space where the woman holds, a larger than normal
share of
the home
workload,
and also you have a lot of the structures and infrastructure set up, both soft and hard, to keep her in the back.
Yes.
You know, so then how do we bring that woman in the front? And when I say that the challenges that women face in Kampala, you need to go up, and honestly, it will wake you up, it will depress you, but also it gives you a whole renewed sense of we need to do so much more. So you have women who cannot go to spaces because it's a largely male-dominated space. When you hold a meeting in Karamoja, the women will not come because you have more men there, and also they're expected to be in another space. They're expected to either be fetching water, to be fetching firewood. They build a house. So when you hold a meeting for artists and you want equal participation of men and women, they will not be there. So if you want the women to come to the meeting, you need to go to where they are for you to be able to engage them in that conversation. Go to the marketplace, find them where they're fetching water, call a community, have one of the community leaders hold a meeting, that way they will come because it's a trusted space. So the challenges are actually very diverse, and it takes you being able to meet them at that point for you to be able to support them. So we've been very intentional about that, and it's a space that's very humbling, really, being able to recognize that we are still so far behind, and we still have so much work to do. So while there is a growth space, while there is an effort to bridge that gap, we're still so far behind.
So far.
That one day cannot be our umbrella on the glass, really. So it's something that we still have. There's so much to do. There's still so much to do.
Rachel, anything?
I think we've had an interesting journey in the LMF. I use the word interesting deliberately.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I think because it was very informal and we were very young and had a lot of time, there were many of us. in the group. And I like to focus on the group because, again, we've been very focused internally. It's only recent that we've been trying to. We don't really count numbers. We don't, we just look at who is out there to come in. So we were many, but after a while, many of the women dropped off. And I remember being asked the question, why? You go to a circle and there may be 3 women and 10 men, and yet we used to have a very balanced.
Yeah.
And again, even it became difficult. Yeah. It just became difficult. Also growing and the challenges women have in spaces, some of them, sometimes we struggled with making the space safe for women. And that was a really big challenge. Again, it nearly broke us. Yeah. And so we've had those active discussions within the group. What do we do to make women feel safe to come back? Again, but also with still allowing people to express themselves freely, because as writers, we surely do not want to be muzzled. Yeah. So we don't want to be the ones who muzzle others, but how do we allow free expression? So those are constant discussions that we've had and struggled through and challenges. But we got to a place, so in the physical meetings, like where the poetry circles are, there were very few women. But when it came to the labs, the writing classes, submissions, there are very many women.
Yes,
there are very many
we receive
women.
more women for the labs.
There are very many women. So it gets, the submissions are there. For the labs, the writing, so there, from what we've seen, there are more women interested in growing their skill. Yeah. Or there are more women who have time, at least maybe in the Kampala space, who are able to make that time than men are. So I remember being asked once, should we create a women-only program? And I said, no, from what we have. You call a lab space and there are only women, so essentially we already have a women's only. So I would argue that for us, we need to find a way to invite the men into our writing spaces. Because into the lab, so that they too can grow their skills. Because if they grow their skills, then they're also writing better. Yeah. They're producing better, more rounded work.
More male submitting to the journal.
Yes. Now the journal, there are more men submitting to the journal. So which would say that women don't feel, when you give them a class, they feel able to come to the class, but they don't yet feel
the confidence to
enough to say that, my work is good enough. And so yes, looking at the different spaces that we have, we are always looking at how they can be helped, how spaces are made safe for them, and safe, I think, for both, because the challenges are real. In Uganda, the challenges are real, especially for artists, and for Women's Day. I mean, Ibua is run. I think most of the staff is
it's predominantly
is female.
Yes, it's predominantly that.
It's
not
female.
Intentionally. It's just
and I think it started out. There was a time when we were definitely being intentional about including women. But after a while, I think the safer the space has become, the more included and the more they're able to participate and stay.
The challenges of practicing as a woman, female artists, is there are quite so many, and that goes both in the practice, in the presence, in the space, in the existence. I know that when we did the survey, several women who then submitted their responses were like, my husband won't let me perform. After I got married, he won't let me perform in the theatre anymore. And then also some of the plays are in the night, and it's not safe. And then also some of the directors want me to
the favors.
Yes, they want extra
I was thinking
favors because I'm a woman. It's a space that's very delicate for many women.
it's risky. It comes with risk. Because I was thinking, when you spoke about that, I remember the, excuse me, the, I think it's Shiba, the musician, sometime last year, towards maybe third quarter or something, just talking about, do you call it a patron?
Yeah.
Like at one of her shows, either at the beginning or midway, in her car, and somebody coming, attacking her basically.
It's a very risky space.
And it goes
it's
down. Important to make the spaces safe and...
You'd be amazed. It goes down even just to basic... it can't even be termed as bullying. Yeah. Because we have a writer that we supported from Bulu last year, and what she does to also make her poetry, to sort of avail it to the audience, she has a radio show. So she reads out some of her poetry there, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Very expressive, actually very, very good. And she said she gets comments from the listeners who tell her, "You'll never even get married. Those poems that you're reading, you're attacking us men. We shall not marry you. Who do you call yourself?" And she's like, this is really her community that is now just bashing her because of her expressive poetry. And then you're like, okay, then how then does somebody create work and avail it and then not get attacked for it? And these are just men in her community that are attacking her.
It is difficult.
I think that's the question as women. How do you, to have, because I'm fascinated by the idea of longevity, whether it's from the institutional space, but as individuals, how do you, to create that body of work, you have to stay in the space for an extended period of time.
Absolutely.
And how do you navigate that as a woman is something that I think about often.
Yeah.
Often it is support. It is support for each other. Yes, it's support for each other. It's looking out for each other.
Amplifying.
Because as the society changes, as the society hopefully and prayerfully becomes better, then we shall eventually get to that. To that place where we don't have to fear, because we are women. Our creativity doesn't have to be stifled because of it. But also to be aware that there are some challenges that I don't think will really ever go away. For instance, motherhood is primarily a woman's, like if I decide to be a mother, I can't,
you can't avoid.
There's certain things I can't avoid.
Yes,
I can't avoid. And so there's certain responsibilities that come with it that are going to affect my work generally. One of the things that I was surprised by, completely taken aback by, was how pregnancy mixed my brain, essentially.
Yeah.
It was absolutely shocking. I couldn't write. It's like I couldn't sit and actually, And so just navigating that also. And I mean, no one had ever told me that. So it was I wasn't prepared not to be able to write and create
during that period of time.
Because all through my life, if I was, if I had any, if I was feeling something strongly, for sure I could write about it. But now I was feeling something strongly, but I couldn't write about it. And so just that, navigating that physical aspect of changing and growing with my talent and skill as well as a woman. So I think also just talking about it and being open about what kind of, how do you work with certain limitations that you may experience. The challenges of families will never go away, I think. Hopefully our economics status improve, but I use myself as an example. For instance, I mean, my husband and I are both engineers, but when we began having children, again, the challenge of the child, we have taking care of the children. When it came to maybe there was sickly, there needed to be a parental presence there. I mean, we considered, just look at the paycheck. Who has the bigger paycheck? I'm not going to sacrifice even me, Like, I'm not going to sacrifice the bigger paycheck to stay home with the children because I desire to work. Like,
so basically,
no, we still need,
and not just having that communication.
Yes.
It wasn't automatically that because you're the mother you had to stay.
We were really looking at...
You had to look at the financial implications.
The financial implications of what was happening. And so, yes, we can also talk about, improving the economic power that women have. But eventually, there's always going to be a discussion.
There should be a discussion.
There should be a discussion about, yes.
Basically, having a supportive, understanding partner that does not just say, because you're a woman, you stay home.
Yeah.
It was interesting listening to... Matembe gave the same related, her personal journey.
Yes.
When she was in law school, and then she had to have a baby. While you cannot, delegate that physical process, her husband was very supportive. And she was able to have the baby, and then he looked after the baby while she continued to study. And then, of course, that brings me to another point that she said, what actually made it hard was his friends who then were mocking him, saying, oh, you're now the babysitter. What kind of a husband are you? And that is our society. That is really the community we live in. And it took his boldness to, just throw it off and just talk back at them, and because he was very understanding of what her priorities were, and was supportive of her to continue.
And essentially, not just her priority, but also the families.
The families, yes.
The families' priorities.
So that helps. Having a supportive partner, definitely.
Yeah. I think maybe telling, and again, the kind of stories we look for, and as we've grown, the kind of poetry we are writing, allowing more and more stories to kind of just to show these images, because many people are growing up, they repeat what they're told and what they've experienced.
You can't ignore.
But just to be able to give that different look. What does a family that supports each other look like? What can they create? What opportunities do they then have if both of you are working together versus one is just seated and the other, and a family where, because really our society is focused on the family, the family unit, and so if the family can see the good in both parents able to work or create, and the culture and creative aspect is great for women, say, because I can work from home. That's really, really great. I can work from home, but still contribute significantly to the family's economic status. And I think that's, as a sector and as LMF, we continue to look at that as the unit, and look at it as the unit. How do we support the woman? How do we give the women opportunities to express themselves, opportunities to grow, opportunities to support, to grow their confidence, to give to their communities? How do we support the man to do what he needs to do in the society? How do we support the children to give them, basically to help them see past their current circumstances?
Okay.
If I could just connect to what Rachel says, I know that as while we're intentional at the SIV Fund and Kuyonesha in supporting more women, we also use what is called the feminist lens in how we support the partners that we work with. And that does not only mean that we support more women, but even how we support them. So it's just in that perspective of being more understanding, being more accommodating, and also knowing that the challenges that women face are diverse. And it's from that lens that you're able to be more understanding. Even the reporting is structured to be simple, so that it's not that very structured, that almost patriarchal and dominating form of reporting. It's still through the feminist lens that then you're able to be a lot more, like using really the soft power. Let's understand the softness, the delicateness, and the more gentle way of understanding that we work with to support the women and everybody else that we work with. And just knowing that sometimes you have challenges. There'll be times you cannot submit a report in time, but will I hound you for it? No. I will use the feminist lens to understand that she needs more time to submit that report. But also what extra support can I offer for her to be able to support that? Because we actually had a partner who had a baby and she couldn't submit her report in time. And that's just what the reality was. So then you allow them more time to be able to go through what they're going through, and then they'll bring it when they're ready. And it's just in that flexibility of allowing the reality of what people are going through and being understanding and mindful of it that enables us to do what we're doing in a different way.
I like that you end with that, because it makes me think of why we tell our stories, the value of telling our stories, because we see we are able to communicate our lives. The African life is not just one-dimensional or two-dimensional. It's this myriad of experiences, and to be able to say that, whether as an artist, visual artist or a writer, is important for us, and to support people that are on the continent. If you want to leave, that's okay, but if you want to stay on the continent, give you access to training, publishing, performance opportunities, and funding.
Yes.
Because it's important. Funding is important to support you on the journey. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for this extended conversation. Thank you for making the time and sharing the experiences of the Lantern Meat Foundation and Kuyonesha Art Fund. Thank you, everybody, for watching us for this time. Join us for other conversations. We'll be having these often, discussing, different topics that are important to us as creatives, as people working in the culture and creative arts sector. And follow us on our socials at Ibua Journal on Twitter, Instagram. Join us on LinkedIn as well. Join us on Facebook. And you can subscribe to the journal, journal.ibuapublishing.com. You can buy one of our books, whether it's Streetlights at Noon Eclipse, Still Blossoming, a poetry collection, and Why Sunflowers Follows the Sun, off our online shop, but as well as in Aristoc and Uganda Bookshop and Just Reads in Tinder. I would also like to thank Sankara. So Sankara Pan-African Library and Restaurant has been our host for this conversation. We thank them for their partnership, and we invite you all our viewers, to come and enjoy the space. All right. So from us at Ibua Publishing, thank you so much. Bye-bye.